Operations. Arguably one of the best introductions into the franchise ever. It's a game mode that needs to be balanced in a totally different way to really anything else that's on offer. With the base game options, all 4 of them are fairly well balanced now, but they saw some updates very quickly after release to address some concerns that defenders had it a little bit too easy. An increase in ticket count and some changes in how flag captures worked, and DICE has now found a fairly good position for them to be sitting in. With the introduction of They Shall Not Pass, however, and 2 brand new operations, it looks like DICE might be in a similar position to where they were before, needing to make some changes quite soon after their release. Devil's Anvil is Battlefield 1's first infantry-only operation, and it takes a very different approach. There's not even a behemoth to help out the attackers when they lose, but instead you gain access to 4 elite-class units. Now, those kind of design decisions require a different approach to balance it out, and it's clear that at the moment, the balance isn't quite right, especially on the first map, Verdun Heights. The first sector on that map, as an attacker, is currently a bit of a nightmare to try and get past, and a couple of rounds that I've played in have ended without the attackers making it beyond that first initial sector. We used all 3 battalions to try and get through, and the defenders just had such an advantage that we just couldn't break the line. Now, I'm sure that wasn't the intent the developers were going for, but Operations, a little bit like Rush, has that general balance rule that in the beginning it should be easy for the attackers, so they can gain a little bit of momentum, but as they get further through the map, it gets progressively harder. For the defenders, it should be the total opposite. Defending the first couple of sectors should be harder as you get pushed back towards your heavier defences, where the attackers will begin to struggle a little bit more. Then the 3 battalions come into play. That gives the attackers more chances to push through. The working title of Operations during Battlefield 1's development was called Breakthrough, making total sense towards the attackers needing to break those defensive lines. And in the case of Devil's Anvil, DICE is making some changes to Operations in order to help the mode flow much better in favour of the attackers at the beginning. All of these changes are being made to Verdun Heights, with only one of them affecting Fort de Vaux, which is the second map in this operation. First of all, 64-man matches on Devil's Anvil will have their ticket count increase from 250 to 350. That's quite a big jump. If you remember, when Battlefield 1 first released, Operations initially had 200 tickets for 64-man matches and 150 tickets for 40-man matches, which was then increased to the current values of 250 and 200 tickets respectively. Now, on just the Devil's Anvil operation, you're going to be getting another 100 tickets per battalion. I assume that was changed to keep the attackers pushing the front line during that initial sector. The last sector on Verdun Heights as well can be very difficult for the attackers to take, so it'll be interesting to see if this extra amount of tickets is going to help there as well. The second change is the attackers' Howitzer spawn. This will now occur just 5 minutes after the first sector has started on Verdun Heights. So essentially, the game starts, and if after 5 minutes the first sector hasn't been taken by the attackers, the Howitzer will spawn in. Now, for me at least, the Howitzer is almost a forgotten addition with the They Shall Not Pass DLC. I only thought it spawned for the defenders on the last sector of the map. I guess that highlights just how infrequently this thing really appears. But that's a bit more firepower for the attackers if they're struggling to break that front line. Thirdly, DICE has tweaked the combat zone of the map as well, and moved some of the spawn points around. A major complaint was that the defenders could get a height advantage on the first sector by simply sitting up on the hill to the left as the attackers spawn in. And it was a bit like cattle to the slaughter if the defenders can hold that high ground. That's now been changed, and hopefully that gives the attackers a little bit more breathing room as they try and break out of their own spawn. Fourth change on the list, I know there's quite a few changes here. Some large craters have been added to the field that's close to the forest that the attackers spawn in. This gives them more soft cover in what was essentially just a shooting range for snipers. If you wanted to rack up kills, set yourself up in one of the houses towards the back of the first sector and simply snipe people as they attempted to run between the hay bales. Whether these craters do a good enough job really remains to be seen, but at least the attackers have some chance over in the field now. And lastly, the elite class kit respawn timers have essentially been removed, reducing them from 30 seconds to 0. So if an elite class dies out on the battlefield, you can go and collect that kit again from its crate near the spawn point in the sector you're on without a single delay whatsoever. Now that could encourage a little bit of camping of those spawn crates, but most players, I've noticed, aren't too interested in being an elite class once they've got going within a sector. If you spawn all the way back at that position, then yeah, go and pick an elite class up, but a lot of the time, I will choose to spawn on a squad mate and get closer to the action, continue pushing that front line, rather than spawning all the way back at essentially our HQ point and picking up an elite class. Now, all of these changes are currently live in the Battlefield 1 CTE. That's pretty normal nowadays, but it's actually very difficult to test them during the day without developers rallying players together in one server. A 64-man match of operations needs at least 50 or so players to really function as intended, and considering the ticket changes are for 64-man servers, unless you've got a high number of players, you're not going to be able to test those changes as efficiently as you possibly can. So if any of you have got access to the CTE, that means if you're a premium member, I highly suggest that you log into those servers around 5 or 6 PM British Summer Time, that's 12 noon Eastern Time, or 9 AM Pacific, to really catch those larger numbers of players into those servers so that we can try and test these operations changes. We won't know for sure if these changes have had the desired effect unless people fully test them out. I do feel like at the moment I'm making a lot of videos to inform you that DICE has changed something, they're improving something, they fixed something, or they're adding something new. It's pretty awesome to see all of this work going in by the developers to ultimately make the game better for us, and as long as they continue to post all these changes, I will continue to cover them. Make sure you leave your thoughts down below. Is Operations really a mode that you put much time into, or do you spend more time playing some of those smaller Battlefield modes? Let me know down in the comments section, and I'll be down there reading as many as I can. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.